No Coins Please by Gordon Korman. Chapter 10, Adventures of the Old Guy. In the campsite just outside the Las Vegas city limits, ambulance groups slept the sleep of the exhausted. Missing entirely the activities of the morning, they woke up in time for lunch at noon, truly rested and refreshed for the first time since Denver. They began the afternoon with a trip to Hoover Dam, taking the tour of the power plant, watching all the films and looking at all the exhibits. Here, Howie showed the first sign of having an interest in anything that was unrelated to space. He seemed to have a keen fascination with the place and had to be restrained from asking questions during the recorded lectures. Sheldon found the engineering details reminded him of Pete Ogrennick. I never understood this kind of stuff. Pete always understood it. Pete could listen to it for hours. I'll never forget the time we went to the nuclear power station. Nick liked the ice cream more than anything else. Kevin liked the view, snapping endless pictures. Sam was bored. Artie disappeared. Rob was more disgusted than shocked. His greatest fear had come to pass in no time at all. Artie was loose on Las Vegas. We'll just have to carry on as if this didn't happen, Dennis decided. We'll go on to Lake Mead just like we planned. Can we fish? Asked Sam. Sure thing. Okay, guys, let's move out. At 4:30, the front door of the LeMay Theatrical Costume and Makeup Studio opened, and a little man hobbled out, leaning heavily on a wooden cane. He had a shock of white hair and a thick mustache. His skin was wrinkled with age, and he had a red-veined nose that was a little too large for his face. He wore a familiar tuxedo, with white gloves on his hands, and from underneath his bushy brows peered the lively dark eyes of Artie Gellar. An 11-year-old would not be allowed in the casino, but an elderly gentleman would be most welcome. He had an early dinner at a restaurant which advertised a 15-cent discount for senior citizens, and then he headed for a casino on the Strip. Wordlessly, Artie opened his briefcase and pushed $10,000 across the counter to the cashier. She counted it carefully, then gave him a holder full of casino color-coded chips. $10,000, sir. Good luck. He acknowledged her good wishes with a brief nod, hobbled over to a blackjack table, and hoisted himself onto an empty stool. There, still using sign language only, he began to play. The table limit was $2,000, and Artie opened with a bet of $500. He drew 18. The dealer drew 20. Artie remained calm as his stakes were swept away. The next 2 rounds he went over 21, losing again. Then he began to win. His photographic memory cataloged the cards already played, and he was able to predict what cards remained and the probability of his getting them. He increased his bets to $1,000 and then to the limit, $2,000, losing occasionally, but in the end winning the majority of the hands. A mountain of chips began to grow in front of him. Word quickly circulated in the casino that there was an old man on a streak at a blackjack table, and a crowd of spectators began to gather to watch him break the bank. One of the observers was the Junior Tour's tour director himself, Charlie Butcher, who felt Las Vegas' leg of the trip was the only consolation for his job. He loved to gamble, and blackjack was his game, although, for him, just breaking even was a triumph. He watched in admiration as the old man avoided any attempts to break his concentration, turning down complimentary drinks and never flinching as the dealer constantly changed the decks. Boy, thought Butcher, he could really learn from an old master like this. Artie's winning streak continued until the assistant manager arrived to inform him politely that he could no longer play. Feel free to avail yourself of any of our other facilities, he said, but I'm afraid our blackjack tables are off limits to you. Congratulations on your big win. There was some booing from the small crowd, but they were all familiar with house policy. Artie nodded understandingly, flipped the dealer a $100 chip as a tip, gathered his winnings, and headed for the cashier. Butcher followed, noting with some perplexity that the old man looked strangely familiar. As Artie was stuffing his new money into the attaché case, Butcher approached him. Say, old-timer, that's quite a respectable game of blackjack you played there. Artie smiled. Too bad they closed you out. Where are you headed next? Artie shrugged as if to say, no place. Mind if I tag along? Artie shrugged again, and the two started out of the casino. The assistant manager called over a plainclothes security man. I want you to follow the old guy wherever he goes tonight and make sure nothing happens to him. Be bad for our image if he got rolled after winning here. See that guy who's with him? I don't trust fast friends of big winners. Got it? Right, boss. The selection process for the next casino was simple. Artie and Butcher, with Butcher in tow, and a security man tagging along at a discreet distance, merely marched into the casino of the next hotel down the strip. He changed another 10,000 into chips and settled down at the blackjack table. Butcher converted all his ready cash, about $200, into chips, and took a seat beside Artie. Trying to match Artie's aggressive play, he made several bad decisions, and his money was gone in half an hour. By that time, Artie was well on his way to shaping another sizable win. Quite a crowd had gathered to cheer him on, but they did so quietly, careful not to break his concentration. "Great move, Pops. Don't let him psych you." That the house was aware of Artie became obvious when free drinks began arriving. Artie accepted these graciously and passed them on to Butcher, who, disgusted with his own game, was sucking them back as fast as they came. The casino manager, watching Artie through the one-way mirror in his office, remarked to an aide, "This is a Sharpie. Ease the old coot out of here and send one of the boys to tail him. We can't have him getting mugged after a big win here." So Artie was once more on his way, followed by a slightly tipsy Charlie Butcher, and about 10 yards back, 2 security guards who turned out to be acquaintances from the old days at Wells Fargo. "All right, guys, what are we going to do tonight?" said Dennis after supper at the Las Vegas campsite. "Stay here and wait for Artie," said Rob firmly. "It figures you'd say something like that, Nevin," said Dennis in disgust. "We don't know when Artie's coming back, and I'm not wasting an evening sitting here. Let's see the bright lights of the city absorb the spectacle of Vegas. We'll go to Circus." "But that's a casino," Rob protested. "There's an observation level where you don't gamble. We'll love it. Right, guys?" The campers were eager to be off, and at 8:45, the white van pulled out of the trailer park and headed for the city lights. 20 minutes later, a royal blue Plymouth sedan pulled up at the front gate, and 2 men dressed in dark clothing approached the park office. One flashed identification at the clerk on duty. "Newman, FBI. We're looking for a white junior tourist van called an ambulance. Know it?" "Oh, it's berthed here all right," the woman replied. "But you won't find them. They went out a few minutes ago. They were headed into town." "Thanks." Newman and O'Reilly got back into the car, made a wide, illegal U-turn, and drove off toward the city. "I have a hard life," Butcher was saying, his words considerably slurred. He stood behind Artie, who was seated at the 5th blackjack table of the night. 4 security guards from the previous casino hovered around the place, keeping an eye on the old man as per their instructions. "I work with junior tours," he shuddered. "It's terrible. All those kids and teenage counselors. Yuck. You wouldn't believe what those guys do." Artie chuckled sympathetically, then raked in some chips as the dealer went over 21. "That's not the worst of my troubles," Butcher rambled. "There's these guys from Canada, the ambulance group. Flakes, all of them, I tell you. If I didn't get to Vegas a couple of times a year, I'd go crazy." From his reverie, Butcher heard what had become his favorite sentence as a waiter appeared, placed a drink down beside Artie, and announced, "Compliments of the house, sir." Clumsily, Butcher grabbed the glass and took a large gulp. As Artie continued winning, the familiar signs began to appear, leading to the inevitable ousting. He converted his chips into cash, made sure that Butcher hadn't wandered away. By now, he felt a certain responsibility toward the man, and ventured outside. Yet, a 5th man was dispatched to join the existing bodyguards, who performed the necessary introductions and shook hands all around. It was not often that the security personnel from so many different casinos got to meet socially. Rule 15, Exposure 14, the show at Circus. Note, Rob in foreground looking nervous. Circus was spectacular, and Dennis, Rob, and the 5 campers were enjoying it immensely. Of the 7, Rob had the most reservations. He felt he should be looking for Artie, or at the very least be back at camp waiting for him. Nearby, one man was raving to his companion, "You don't know what's been going on in this town. There's this little old man in a tuxedo. He looks 75, maybe 80. He's working the blackjack tables on the strip, and he's cleaning up. All the casinos are asking him to leave, so he just puts the money in his attaché case and moves on down the road." The words little, tuxedo, attaché case, and cleaning up broke through to Rob. His mind raced. It had to be Artie. It just had to be. Any little man wearing a tuxedo, carrying an attaché case with a lot of money, and on the way to a lot more had to be Artie. The part about it being an old man was confusing, but it might be a disguise to get him into the casino. In any case, they had to find him. He sidled up to Dennis and explained the situation. Dennis seemed proud. "What a fiery little guy. Nothing can stop him." "This is serious, Dennis. He could get into a lot of trouble. We've got to get to him." Grudgingly, Dennis agreed. I'll go tell the guys. You do that, said Rob, and pray Butcher doesn't find out about this. The white van cruised the Las Vegas Strip. Here's the plan, said Rob. We go to the hotels, one at a time, run in and have a look around, and sooner or later we'll find him. But if he's disguised as this old man, said Dennis, will we recognize him? Don't be thick, Dennis. Of course we will. Some briefcase, same tuxedo, and anywhere there's a big crowd, there's probably Artie. Also, we know he's playing blackjack. Let's start with the Hilton. They pulled into the parking lot, and Dennis turned to the campers. We'll just be a couple of minutes, guys. Wait for us in the van. The two jogged into the hotel entrance, and a few minutes later jogged out again. Not in there, puffed Rob. Let's move down one. Dennis pulled into traffic and quickly turned back down the next driveway. He and Rob ran into the brilliantly lit hotel. 2 minutes later, they were back. All right, said Rob with grim determination. Next, we're going to find him if we have to check out every gambling place in Vegas. The Royal Blue Plymouth cruised the city. Agents Newman and O'Reilly scanning the roads and parking lots for the white van. Ambulance. O'Reilly was talking on his cell phone. Right, thanks. We'll check it out. Frank, the local police say there have been sightings of that white van in and around the Strip. Okay, said Newman. Let's get over there. 8 security men lounged comfortably about the casino of the Las Vegas Hotel gun hold, keeping an eye on their elderly charge as he systematically mounted up another fortune. Artie was playing with his usual unflappable flair. Butcher, now 3 sheets to the wind, was relating his life story, interspersing comments about his terrible job, Canada, and ambulance group into the narrative. Between Butcher's monologue and Artie's expert play, a large audience was held spellbound. Through the wide doors of the casino jogged Dennis and Rob, scanning the glittering bustle of the room. Rob's eyes fell immediately on the crowd surrounding the blackjack table. He searched the faces until he came to the old man. It was amazing. Some makeup artist had put 65 years on the kid, but it was still Artie. The eyes gave it away. Rob decided those dark eyes that knew so much and said so little. Psst, whispered Dennis. There he is. Can you believe that? Rob nodded grimly. Let's go get him. Wait a minute. Who's that with him? Hey, it looks like Butcher. Oh, no. We can't go up there. If Butcher sees us, that's it. What's Butcher doing with Artie anyway? I don't know, moaned Rob, shaking his head. I don't know anything anymore. We'll have to wait here, Dennis decided. As soon as Artie gets far enough away from Butcher, we'll grab him. What about the others? We've got 5 other kids besides this beast. Don't worry about them. They're good kids. We told them to stay in the van, and they'll stay in the van. We can't just stay in the van, Sam was saying. They've been gone a long time. They could be in trouble. Maybe Artie's in trouble. What kind of trouble? Asked Sheldon meekly. Big trouble, said Nick. We've got to help out, said Sam decisively. It's our duty as members of an ambulance group, right? Right. Okay, we'll need to disguise ourselves so we won't be recognized. Why? Asked Kevin. Well, Artie's in disguise, so it must be important. Right. But we don't have any disguises, Howie pointed out. You're right. I guess we'll have to improvise. Now let's see. 5 minutes later, the campers emerged from the van, splendidly arrayed in Dennis's lovingly collected souvenirs. Sam wore the gigantic fringed sombrero. Kevin's face was all but lost in the Indian headdress. Nick almost completely disappeared inside the huge Indian blanket. Howie was selected to wear the dome of the Capitol building with the red, white, and blue streamers. That left Sheldon without a costume, so he was chosen to carry the heavy artillery in case of an emergency. Dennis's 16-pound block of pure steel. Sheldon also decided to wear his cow expert t-shirt, as he felt it would earn him the respect of those around him. On his head was a Chicago Cubs baseball hat, which seemed to Sam to be slightly traitorous, but after all, this was an emergency. Since the souvenirs had been bought to fit Dennis, the headgear restricted the camper's vision considerably, and it was only with much bumping into each other that the boys deployed themselves. They staggered and stumbled in through the door of the hotel and began milling around the lobby, presenting hotel staff with a delicate question of what to do with them. 2 security men tried to quiet them down. The question of throwing them out would depend on whether or not they were the children of hotel guests, but this only complicated the problem. Howie, interpreting the iron grip on his shoulder as imminent danger, accidentally drop-kicked a vase, sending fragments of shattered pottery across the lush carpet. Sam, heroically rushing to his aid, but blinded by his oversized sombrero, ran at full speed into a large potted fern, spraying dirt high into the air. This completely covered an elegantly dressed woman who was waiting for her escort to join her. He never made it across the lobby, for it was his destiny to trip over Sam's discarded sombrero and throw out his back. Nick disentangled himself from his Indian blanket and tossed it over the head of a security guard. Shocked, the man staggered a step backwards and fell with a tremendous splash into the lobby's ornate fountain. Sheldon, barely able to see the chaos beneath his low visor of his cap, attempted to run away, but mistook a large mirrored wall for freedom. With a crack, he hit the wall, steel block first, and the image in front of him disintegrated into glass splinters at his feet. Inside the casino, there was a rush to the door to investigate the disturbance in the lobby. In the midst of the commotion, Rob looked at Dennis. Dennis nodded. This might be their only chance. They ran up to the blackjack table and lifted Artie off the stool, one of them under each of his arms, then began to propel him through the crowd toward the exit. "Hey!" yelled Butcher. "Hey!" yelled the 8 security men, who were under instructions to protect Artie from such an assault. Carrying Artie, Dennis and Rob attempted to plow through the crowd, carrying the attaché case still firmly clutched in Artie's gloved hand, as a battering ram. They blasted into the lobby and froze at the sight of their 5 other campers, bizarrely dressed, scrambling around and knocking things over. That momentary pause was their undoing. The 8 security men fell on them from behind, knocking them sprawling and setting Artie free. Chaos reigned. Dennis and Rob, not knowing which of their charges to rescue first, tried to wade through the teeming sea of people so they could be at the heart of the matter. But the 8 security men pushed them aside as they rushed to find Artie. Voices rang out. "What's going on? Someone's trying to rob the old guy! Someone's trying to kidnap the old guy! Someone's trying to murder the old guy! Save the old guy!" "Who are all these kids?" screamed the desk clerk. Desperately trying to calm down the woman who was covered with dirt from the upended fern. "We're the ambulance," announced Kevin from underneath the end table he was using for cover. The man who had tripped over the sombrero raised his head off the floor in agitation. "So what are you doing here? Drumming up business?" Just then, Butcher staggered out of the casino. "Ambulance? Oh, no." The front door of the hotel burst open and the 2 federal agents ran inside, guns drawn. "Newman, FBI!" "Sheldon, Cal expert," announced Sheldon. He threw his arms wide to reveal his shirt, and the weight of the steel block became too much for one hand. 16 pounds of pure steel slipped from his grip and fell squarely on someone's foot. "Ow!" cried Charlie Butcher, falling to the floor in pain. Dennis leaned over his fallen boss. "Mr. Butcher, are you okay?" Butcher blinked in confusion. "You know me? How do you know me?" He sat up and pointed an accusing finger at the counselor. "You're one of those Canadian ambulance guys, and this is all your fault." "Quiet, everybody," bellowed Newman. "This is a federal investigation. Calm down." "Save the old guy," howled someone. "Who's the old guy?" shouted O'Reilly. "This is the FBI. Order. Everybody, order." The hubbub died down a little. Murmurs began to circulate. "Hey, Harry, it's the FBI. Did we do anything lately?" "Nah, they must have come for the old guy. I told you nobody wins that much legally. He's cheating." "Hey, I just heard the old guy cheats. The old guy's a crook. He's a menace to society. Kill the old guy." One of the casino security men grabbed Rob by the collar. "You and your friend tried to make off with the old guy. Who are you anyway?" He's our grandfather," Rob stammered. The 2 FBI agents moved through the crowd and climbed up on top of the hotel desk, which afforded them the best view of the lobby. "Quiet," bawled Newman. The murmurs died. "Now listen, I want the guys who belong to the Junior Tourist Group ambulance to step forward." Dennis, Rob, and the 5 campers disentangled themselves from the crowd and began to thread their way through the people toward the 2 agents at the desk. Newman spoke. "I make it 5 kids, and you're supposed to have 6. Well, you see, our 6th kid, that is, the old guy is really, Artie is, oh, forget it, arrest me." "So you're the one who's behind all these kid in the tuxedo scams?" prompted O'Reilly. Rob's head jerked up. "The kid in the tuxedo? You mean you know about the kid in the tuxedo? Well, he's, oh my goodness, where is he?" "Where's the old guy?" called someone. "The old guy isn't here. The old guy's missing. He's escaped. Get the old guy." The mob ignited once again, burst out the front door of the hotel in time to see Artie, sprinting with surprising agility for a man his age, leap ahead, jump into a cab, and speed off. "Stop that kid!" shouted Rob. "What kid?" called O'Reilly. "That old man is our 6th kid. He's the one who always wears the tuxedo, and he's 11 years old." The crowd surged and boiled under the bright lights of the strip. "After him!" cried someone, and there was a great rush to the parking lot. Ambulance group forgotten, Newman and O'Reilly leapt into the illegally parked car and roared off in the direction of the taxi taken Cars poured out of the gun-hold lot and followed the FBI men as the casino patrons rushed to see the elderly cheater brought to justice. Artie got out of the taxi at the McCarran International Airport, paid the driver, and darted into the building and up to the information desk. "When's the next flight to Canada, please?" The girl looked at him oddly. His voice did not match his face. "We're in Canada, sir. Anywhere, please, just so it leaves soon." She checked the departure list. "American Airlines has one going to Toronto in 5 minutes, but I don't think you'll have time to." Artie darted down the American Airlines desk, bought his ticket, threw his money at the clerk in a green blur of cash, and raced through the screening procedure. He arrived at the gate, gasping for breath, just as the flight attendant announced, "Last call." Soon he was comfortably established in his seat, and the plane began to taxi toward the runway. Suddenly it stopped. The intercom crackled on, but instead of the usual announcement, there was a long pause. Finally, a voice said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have been recalled to the gate. Nothing is wrong, and we apologize for the delay." At the end of the loading ramp, waiting for the DC-8 to return, stood Newman and O'Reilly, 2 airport police officers, Dennis, Rob, and Butcher. All the other people, the 5 boys, the 8 security men, and the interested observers, were assigned to a waiting room on the arrivals level. The sleek nose of the plane appeared, then the aircraft aligned itself with the gate. The door was opened, and the 7 men filed inside. Artie was not in his assigned seat, but one of the washrooms was occupied. Rob knocked slightly on the door. "Artie, is that you?" There was no answer. "Artie, we know it's you," called Newman, "so you might as well open up. The game is definitely over." There was a click and the bathroom door opened to reveal Artie Gellar. His disguise was gone, without a trace, dressed in the jeans and short-sleeved shirt he had worn to Hoover Dam that afternoon. The 2 FBI men started at the sight of him. This was the felon, the confidence man, the fleeing fugitive, this child. Artie said, "Hi, Dennis. Hi, Rob." "You're under arrest," O'Reilly managed, feeling foolish, quickly as he sped through the list of Artie's rights. "And now, young fellow," said Newman, "I'll take that briefcase." Artie stepped back, ripped open his shirt, reached into the leather pouch, and came up with the gold key. He popped it into his mouth and swallowed. Every muscle of Newman's body seemed to slump. "Aw, kid, no! Aw, no, no, no!" He turned to O'Reilly. His face registered panic. "Tim, where's the nearest hospital around here?" Butcher, who had not made it past the first-class section, suddenly said, "Hey, a plane! I'm taking a trip!" He turned clumsily to the nearest passenger. "Where are we going?" "Toronto," said the man. Butcher recoiled. "Toronto? But that's in Canada!" The tour director's body went limp, and he crumpled to the floor, dead to the world.